Thank you very much, Enrique, for your presentation. I'm Angela, not Angela, Angela, and I talk also for Ignacio. And thank you very much for coming to this lecture, and I'm very, really happy to have such a qualified audience here. So this first image really is the building we just finished in this last month in Ceuta. That's north of Africa, but it's a Spanish city. And really, in all our past lectures, I would have explained this building and the previous building. That's also a building that deals with archaeology and with different times in architecture. But 2 days ago, we opened an exhibition in Lisbon. This is the image of the exhibition. Fuensanta was asking me about this exhibition. And this monographic exhibition made us think about all the past projects we had built. And we thought that it could be a good idea to transmit you not only the past two buildings, the last two buildings, but to talk about all the themes that are interesting for us in architecture, and to talk about the way we think and not the way we make architecture. To talk about all these facts that conform architecture and that are hidden underneath all the projects. So we thought it could be a good idea to give you a glance of other projects that maybe, I suppose, that you don't know very well, and to link all the projects one to each other in the same way all the parts that go in architecture are linked together. So the projects I'm going to talk about are in pairs to try to talk about one theme in each project. One of the themes is the site. Because the site has always been very important for us from the first competition in 1990 when we started our practice. Competitions have been very important because all our work comes from public competitions, and the site really decided most of the projects. In these two projects, on top you have the site of this very small town hall in Valdemaqueda in Madrid that decided how the town hall was going to be built. And many years ago, in 1992, and in the lower part, a building that we completely last year in Gandia. That's a very small school that is also concerned to the site and linked to the plot. No, here we see the place of Valdemaqueda in Madrid, in the central part of our Iberian Peninsula, and the site. It is a tiny village in Madrid with very dispersed buildings, and this village did not have a town hall. But we realized when we entered the competition that the village didn't have either a plaza. Plaza is really a main feature on Spain cities and villages, and we thought that the building did not only needed to build the program, but also to build the plaza. No? So we decided to divide the town hall in two blocks, very tiny blocks. The whole town hall is 300 square meters. So it's really like two tiny blocks, like two houses, but that unfold in that way, and that permit to leave all that open space to build the plaza. The two blocks are linked by a very light structure where the entrance is placed, and with this decision we built not only the tiny town hall, but we also built the plaza. So here we can see the town hall, how it gets completely integrated into the small volumes of the of Valdemaqueda village, and also the integration of the colors with the gray of the concrete towards the gray of the granite. But another aspect of the project, besides the plaza, that's the entrance to the small town hall from the new plaza, was to give this a tiny building the institutional character that any public building must have, and more if it's a town hall. So we had the clock, and we had the flags, and we had the plaza. So despite the small scale, really the presence of the town hall is very important in this tiny village. And on the other side, that's the side that's opposite to the entrance of the plaza. The volume opens towards the south and towards the beautiful views of the pine woods that surround Valdemaqueda and towards the landscape. But many years after this school in Gandia, we just finished it 1 year ago, also deals with the existing elements in the site. Gandia is situated, it's located in the Mediterranean coast, and the school that the municipality of Gandia wanted to build was going to be built in a park. There you can see the site with the trees marked in green, and this tiny school was really part of the park. But when we went to visit the site, we found out that there were 6 beautiful mulberry existing trees that had to be cut because the city council wanted to build the school just in the central part of the site. Sometimes when I've explained this building in other countries with lots of trees and with lots of vegetation, they ask, well, why was so important to keep the trees? But because you are used to having large and lovely, enormous trees, but in Spain, vegetation it's not usual, and it isn't usual either to have a budget to get the vegetation planted after the building is finished. So we decided not to cut up the trees. We have on the left-hand side the place of the trees and the place of the park where we were supposed to build the small school, and on the right part how we kept the mulberry trees, and we decided to build up all the classrooms around the mulberry trees. So we didn't need to build a garden, but we already had the patio where the children played in the central part of the school. So all the classrooms are organized around the trees in with a direct relationship with the courtyard. So this is a display of the school. It's also very small and very simple. The structure is concrete, and the walls, the structure of the walls are also the separation for all the classrooms, and how all the school is surrounded by a rather opaque facade that builds up all the wrapping of the school, and on top of it, two-pitch roof to cover the school. All the school is built the outside with ceramic, not only the facade but also the roof, and there is a continuity in the material that builds all this exterior of the building. So towards the exterior, the building has a very continuous facade that it's just like sort of palisade that avoid building fences. So the school is also its own fence that's all built up with this white ceramic. It's a very simple exterior with a very small scale, and from the outside the building intends to be very light and very white, and the trees reflect onto the facade. This is the ceramic piece. That's a hollow ceramic piece that we use it, the hollow part for building the facade and the flat part to build the roof. So from the outside we have a single volume perforated by the lobulated patio, and with the trees that can be seen from the outside. And towards the interior, the building is completely different because it's very transparent towards the patio and towards the classrooms and towards the trees. And once spring has transformed, the trees now shade the patio, and they also shade the classrooms in a natural way. So in a natural way, sustainability is built with the only means of the site and of the existing trees. And from the inside, all the wooden carpentries and the light structure is set in communication with the patio where the children play. So this is an aspect of classrooms that are now going on towards the patio, and only one opening in the outside for the door, with the children getting in the classrooms. And the other double block of projects that are the theater in the center of Madrid, the Olympia Theater in the center of Madrid, and the Archaeology Museum in Almería, in southern Spain. They are two competitions from the same years, but really they deal with the same concept, trying to use urban space and the open public space in the city to use it also for the building, because another thing that we think it's important of architecture is that architecture not only builds up the interior spaces and the program of the building, but it is also building up the walls of our cities. It's also building the rooms of our cities, especially in our Mediterranean culture. The plazas are part of the city and are even more important than the interior rooms of the city. So the Olympia Theater in Madrid is set up in a very dense part of the city. Here in the red dot, you can see it. You can see it in the more ancient part of the city, where the city is very dense, and we thought we had to build and to give our city an open space where people could meet and where people could get up together, and not only the avant-garde theater that we were supposed to build after we won the competition. So in one part we had this avant-garde theater, experimental theater, that was to be developed for our Ministry of Culture. But on the other side, we had to give the neighborhood and the district, we had to give something else. That's the plaza in front of the theater, because all this ancient lavapiés theater was also being refurbished by Madrid's municipality. And we decided to build up the theater close to the party walls. We also fragmented the whole volume into 3 volumes, one of each with 3 large windows that opened towards the Lavapiés Plaza and towards the new open space that was going to be built in front of the theater, linked with the ancient Lavapiés Plaza. That's the triangular plaza that's underneath. So now we have 2 triangles linked by the vertex in the center, and the new theater as part of the ancient neighborhood. So it was also important to divide the volume because of the scale of the existing buildings, and also because we wanted to have these large windows opening towards the outside, and to have this linking between outside and inside, so that the building, when it is on use at night time, can be, the interior parts can be also seen from the outer parts of the city. So it is not a large theater. We needed to seat 500 people. It was quite a difficult site because the triangular shape was no good for the rectangular shape. We needed for this movable and experimental theater with different positions for staging and for different plays. So we tried to adapt the necessary box towards the party walls, and to leave the lobby and the open windows towards the plaza in front of the theater. It is a very simple theater. As soon as people come into the lobby, we do not even have a cafeteria because it's a working place. It's not a private theater. It's a working place where new plays are experimenting with new people that work inside the theater. And when one comes inside, we only have the new doors that open to the black box theater that's beyond the door. So really, the order and the plan of the theater is very simple. We had very little place on ground, but we had the space in height. So really, the lobby that is very little, it seems quite high and quite important because of the height. And there is also a spatial continuity in this lobby of the theater. Here is the way the theater works. As I said before, it's just a black box, but where the stage can be placed in any part, because all the interior part can be transformed with different platforms that move, so that we can have different plays and different situations for stage. Well, this is the way the stage works with the all the different situations of seating and staging. And this is one of the possibilities. This is the more traditional one, with people just in front of the stage, but really the whole space is a unique stage, so that we can have very successfully all types of theater plays and theater situations where people can surround all the actors, and we can have all these different experimental and avant-garde theater. But as I said before, for us, it was not only the program, but the site that now is full of people. We finished this theater, I know, about 8 years ago, and we went there just 3-4 days ago. We were there because the owner wanted some changes, and they always ask us all the things they want to improve. So we were there, and really we were happy to see and to notice that the theater is full of life. But what is most important for us is that the city is full of life and full of people, and that the new theater has built a new situation for a neighborhood that was completely destroyed before this intervention and other intervention took place. So architecture, in this sense, can completely transform the cities and can transform the life of the people that live on them. And not only are objects that we architects look from the outside, we must think also about all this social part of architecture that, as I said before, is it's important. It's important in our work and in different works. The Archaeology Museum in Almería, in the Mediterranean coast, had also the same problem. We had a very dense city. Here's the plan. Well, Almería has beautiful sea, but the city was so dense that we did not have any public space or plaza either in front of the museum. So when we were given the site for the competition, we had the whole plot, the whole square to build a museum, archaeology museum, quite low in two or three levels only. But when we traveled to the site, we decided that the building had to be more compact and had to be just built in one corner, because the building had to give the city of Almería a plaza and an open space for the people in front of the museum. And in this point, I also want to explain also that this museum in Almería had a beautiful collection that archaeology from Neolithic times, 4,000 years before Christ, and that this beautiful collection was just stacked in boxes and in an old warehouse, because there wasn't a place to exhibit all these beautiful pieces. So it was a necessary museum, but as I said before, the plaza was really for us the main feature of the project. As you can see, the building is quite opaque towards the city because it's completely surrounded by high-rise dwellings and buildings, and we thought that the building had to be a bit endogamic. So the building had to be open in the ground floor ground towards the plaza, but on the upper part it had to be just like Arab architecture that looks towards the interior. So from the outside it's very compact, and it is built with the natural marble of Almeria quarries. Almeria is one of the places in Spain where we have very important quarries and very large quarries, and we thought it could be also a good idea to use this marble to build up the opaque facades of the museum. From the inside parts, we also use this material. We also like to use few materials in our architecture, because sometimes we think it's not necessary to have a large display of materials when in such a times as in Almeria we have this beautiful marble and the light of Almeria, the natural light of Almeria. So all the museum stacks all the exhibition rooms in several levels vertically, with different spaces that are connected by a large void that orientates the visitor and that links all the exhibition rooms. So all the exhibition rooms are linked one to another, and so we can organize all the exhibition parallel to the walls. But the light was also very important, because we had skylights in the roof, but the light in Almeria is very harsh and very strong, very white light. So we decided to use this filter. That's a wooden filter that's built up with modular pieces of wood, in the same way that the ancient Arab architecture also uses these filters for light, just like to build a ceiling underneath the skylights and underneath the roof. So the roof, the light, when it comes inside now, it's not white hard light, but it's a more delicate light when it comes through the wooden filters. Well, this is the staircase of the museum that connects all different levels and all the exhibition areas. Everything is open and everything is set up in continuity. So all the exhibition rooms have voids towards the lower parts of the museum, and despite this opaque look of the building from the outside and from the marble facade, the interior is full of light and also full of light. This is an image of these beautiful quarries in Almeria. I was talking to you before, and with this marble we built up both the outside and both the inside of the museum, and we drew all the display of the marble for the facade with very freely, because we didn't had the need of an urban scale on an urban void, because most of the exterior part of the museum is opaque. We only have some viewpoints towards some parts of the city that are open onto the walls, and so all the display of the marble is completely abstract. Only from the back part of the museum, where the all the interior parts of the museums of the workshops are placed, and where all the offices are placed, we have a more urban character with these openings. And towards the new plaza, really, we have this abstract image of the building, but this image is just when the plaza was finished with the palm trees that were not open, but now the image has completely it's completely different, because the palm trees are open, and the plaza really functions very well. It's always full of people in front of the theater, in front of the museum, and what it's most important is that beside the necessary spaces for the archaeological collection of the Siret collection, now architecture has been able also to build a place for the people in Almeria. And the other double projects deals with something that is quite important also for us in Spain, is that places that are not inside and that are not outside, all these intermediate spaces in architecture that are very important also in our culture in Spain. One of them is the Peñíscola Auditorium in the Mediterranean coast. It was also a competition. And we had to develop an auditorium and a small congress center in this part of the coast that's always full of activity, and that demands this congress part besides the auditorium. This is the site. As you can see, it is placed in front of a park and in front of a lake. So the site was also important for the building and for the scheme we developed for the building. We also decided to fragment or the volume into smaller volumes, one of them for the auditorium and another one that was wrapping around the auditorium for all the necessary spaces. But really for us, the entrance to the auditorium was an important fact of the volume of the auditorium, because in this part the Congress Center was going to link the park and was going to link the outdoor space of the pond and of the park, was going to link with the lobby of the auditorium. So the feature of the project was this atrium that's it's like a shelter. That's the entrance to the auditorium, and that is the really the image of the auditorium now. Now everybody in Peñíscola knows that the main entrance and that the feature of the auditorium is this this shelter, this atrium, because it is also an open air place to develop music or plays, or to get people together, or to for all these public and meeting point for people. So this atrium regulates also the temperature beyond the entrance, and this open atrium that is facing the garden, it also shades the inside, and it is built up with these large ceramic pieces that are manufactured in this part of Valencia. In Valencia, there are many large manufacturers of ceramic, but not only flat ceramic, but three-dimensional ceramic that up till then, well, it has been used a lot in architecture in the 50s and 60s in Brazil, for instance, but not in really modern architecture. And we always thought from the competition that we would like to use this three-dimensional ceramic to build up this atrium that is built up in front of the Palau. Palau is the name of the auditorium, the Palau. This is the simple way in which the program is organized with the auditorium. It seats 700 people, and all the rooms around the lobby, and how the gavia, that's the atrium, is the main feature of the project. That can be seen also from the entrance and from the lobby. Really, all these indoor, outdoor spaces, intermediate spaces are so important, not only in our culture, but in all Mediterranean cultures. There are many beautiful words that sound the same in many languages, just like atrium, or patio, or belvedere, or galeria. All these spaces that really modern architecture hasn't taken up the best of these beautiful spaces, and that in this case we thought they were very important in this place, in Peñíscola. Well, this is the large auditorium. Here we had a different problem, because we were supposed to have a very little height, only 13 meters, and we had to have all the interior volume for acoustical means. So we decided to build up a very thin layer of concrete that would also deal with all the acoustical part of the program. But this was important for us, this transparency of the atrium, of the gavia, and it can be seen also from the inside of the auditorium, and it also shades the interior parts of the lobby, and you can perceive the sea beyond the three-dimensional pieces of ceramic. That's really like a large installation of ceramic, because it's completely open. On the around it, it's open, but it's only sheltered on top of it for rain. So it's an open room where many things go on in Peñíscola up till now. It's a building that's been used a lot, and it's full of activity all around the year. No? So these are some images of Gandia and the entrance lobby. And the other project related to indoor, outdoor spaces in architecture is a small winery in Valdepeñas in La Mancha that we have been refurbishing during several years. La Mancha is in the central part of Spain. Maybe you know Cervantes and El Quijote. It's a very beautiful part of Spain that's with vineyards and with olive trees, but it's very dry. So architecture is also quite hard. Cortijo is the word of this large construction for agriculture that are built in the landscape. We had an ancient 17th century cortijo, and the owner wanted to refurbish the cortijo to give it a new meaning, because in Spain in the last years the culture of wine has been now quite fashion. So people that were having manufacturing quite good wines, they also wanted to have the winery refurbished. In this case, we had to deal with this beautiful cortijo beside a very large pond in this particular landscape, and we had to build inside the patio of the ancient building. Existing building. The patio was very large because originally these patios were used for agriculture means and for lorries and cars that came inside the patio. But in our case, the owner wanted to have all these new smaller pieces of architecture, such as rooms for tasting wine or shops, or restaurant, or an open space for events and for meeting people and for meeting points or small congresses. So we decided to divide again the interior part of the patio into different parts with the construction of this star-shaped canopy. It's really a very light metal canopy that divides the interior space of the patio that was very large, but it didn't touch the walls of the existing cortijo. So there is an old architecture and a new architecture that don't touch each other, but that are set up together and that are trying to dialogue together to have a new meaning and to have new spaces and new uses for the ancient construction. So all the program, as I said, were arranged around the outer parts of the cortijo, and in the inside we placed the star shape and the courtyard that connects all the old and the new construction. This is an image of the ancient building with the new door that it's getting us inside the new use of the cortijo in the old building. As I said, it's a very light metal structure. The peaks of the star volume open towards the landscape, and they give an entrance towards the new complex. All the structure was prefabricated in steel, and one can see all the old parts of the existing building and the new architecture, but also intending to use not the same material, because one is steel and wood and the other one is plaster and brick tiles, but also to use the same colors, the orange, the white, both in the old and in the new construction. And all these open spaces are the spaces I was talking that are important in our culture, because we had many months along the year to use them, and people are used to live in the streets and to live into and to meet in these indoor-outdoor spaces. And also the large scale of the old courtyard now is divided into all these smaller open areas that are linked to the outside and towards the the former construction. And from the inside, one cannot notice when we are inside and outside because materials are the same and the structure is the same. So there's a sort of transparency between the inside and the outside that are set up in continuity. And in this way, the winery is enlarged and is completely transformed, but really we didn't touch the old building. We only refurbished the interior parts of the building. And at this point, talking about new and old architecture, we had the opportunity to work besides the winery with an ancient construction. We had the opportunity to work with archaeology and to work with the fragments of the past in these two buildings. One of them is the Olmeda Roman Villa in Palencia that was opened 3 years ago. And the other one, that's the image of the lecture, that's this library in Ceuta that also has an archaeological remains and site inside the library. It is important because really now in Spain, you know that things have changed a lot for architects. There has been many years where when new buildings had been completed, and a country that was quite poor, with wonderful heritage and history, but we didn't have auditoriums, we didn't have either museums, and now our country has all these buildings that are full of activity now. And for instance, in the musical part, I know quite well, now orchestras can go from one part of another, and this has improved education and has improved musical education, both for children and for adults. But now we have a different situation. Now architects have to build upon the built, and we have to refurbish the existing buildings, and we have to build in the gaps of the existing buildings, and we have to refurbish a lot. So in these two buildings, we had to build with elements of the past that were already there. For instance, in Palencia, this was a competition. In Palencia, Palencia is situated in the north of Spain. Archaeology has meant not only the construction of a new building to protect a very valuable archaeological site, but it has also meant the construction of a building in the landscape. This is a map of our Iberian Peninsula with all the Roman roads where the Olmeda Roman Villa is placed. And in this place, in a totally rural emplacement, we had to cover this beautiful Roman villa that was discovered very late in 1968. Here in La Olmeda, the landscape was very important also for the building, because in other projects the city is important for the buildings, but in this case really the hidden geometry of nature is important for the building. Here is Javier Cortes, that was the owner of the land when he discovered the first mosaics. The Olmeda was a completely casual discovery, so the Roman villa is complete and has not been broken in the past years. This villa was a late Roman from the 4th century, is one of the best kept in Europe, with beautiful mosaics. Here you can see the size of these mosaics that are kept just like they were discovered, because they were never taken away from the site. In those times, the central government wanted to take up the mosaics and take them to the Madrid Archaeological Museum, but the owner wanted to keep them on site. And now I think that this is one of the most important things in La Olmeda, is that the landscape and the agriculture and the site is really the same as it was in the 4th century when the Romans built up the villa. So for people, it's very easy to understand the way Roman people lived in a very similar way as they live now, and also with a very similar language, no? Because our language is completely similar to Latin. And this is the plan of the ancient villa, that is very, how you say, orthodoxa. It's very with 2 axes and with a quadrangular courtyard in the center, and the building that's on the left part of the villa is a very large thermal building that was discovered after we won the competition. The extension of the archaeological area is really very, very, very big. So we knew really how to protect the beautiful mosaics, but we didn't really know how to present the fragments of the past to the visitor that comes to the Olmeda, because there are not many references in architecture in Europe of covering such a large area, excavated area. It is over, all the excavated area is over 10,000 square meters. So we decided to wrap up all the villa with a very light facade, with a very light metal facade that really embraces and that builds up a box for the ancient villa. And we decided also to infiltrate inside the voids and the spaces that were free, all the different parts of the program that were needed for the museum, such as a restaurant or exhibition area or a very small auditorium or workshops. And everything was linked with this pedestrian wooden footpath that is linking all the different parts of the villa and the program, so that visitors can understand, and that to make it comprehensive for visitors. No, the whole plot was covered with 4 vaults, 3 vaults for the villa and another one for the thermal building. Very light vaults that are built up with a metal structure, because to avoid to step onto the ancient archaeological finds. We also wanted a transparency inside the space of the villa, a transparency towards all the parts, so also the visitor could be aware of the dimension and of the size of the interior space. And also we wanted to show all the different rooms of the villa, not only the mosaics like if they were a tapestry, but also to show all the different heights of the rooms, because we only had the lower part of the Roman brick walls. So this is the display of the program, with underneath the archaeological remains, and on top the different parts of the program, and the light facade that wraps all around it. And at last the covering with these very light metal bolts that cover all the space. The program was very simple, and it is all set up in the same space of the museum. Here we can see also the facade. That's a folded facade. Now we'll see some photographs. And this is the result of the interior part of the museum. This footpath is elevated 1.5 meters on top of the Roman brick wall, so one can see from a very good point of view all the ancient mosaics, and also one can see all the space of the museum, because this light structure is only supported by 4 columns in the center of in the corners of the central courtyard. We only had left the brick arches that you can see there on the right part, and all the rest of the remains are very low brick walls. It is also important that we had quite a very low budget, so we had to administrate very well our budget, and the structure is also building up the interior part of the museum. So all this rhombus part of the ceiling is both a structure and is also the ceiling of the new interior of the villa. We didn't want to have an industrial image, nor with wide, because the spans of the beams are very large. They are 75 meters long and 25 meters wide, but we didn't want to have an industrial interior. We wanted to give the villa part of the volume and the importance and the richness that it had years ago when it was built. So structure is building the outside and also the inside. This is the central patio, and once again we only have as materials the steel of the structure, and then the Iroko wood of the footpaths, and the wrapping of the metal part of the facade. This is a cross section, where the vaults can be seen underneath the facade that wraps up the whole museum, and how in the model you can see how the large vaults are built up with a modular scheme, with smaller rhombus pieces that were manufactured outside the site of the villa, and that were transported there, and that were screwed up to build up the large beams. And the rest of the program, such as the cafeteria, are placed in very small areas and rooms that are with air conditioning or with heating in summer because the whole space is not conditioned, it's only ventilated. We only have 4% of the volume of the totally of the building that is with heated or with air conditioning. So the cost of the maintenance of the building is very low. We must remember that we are in the middle of the landscape, and in the middle of that beautiful landscape, poplar trees landscape. We only have one opening towards the entrance and towards the landscape and the poplar trees. This is the landscape and the size of the poplar trees. We wanted to dimension the building, this very large building, with the size of the poplar trees that surrounded the villa. And also we wanted to have inside the museum this sensation of light and shadow that we have when we get inside the wood or inside the trees that surround the villa. So landscape was important, and the size of the building in this case. And despite the large size, it intends to integrate with the landscape and to link with also with the nearby nature. Well, here in this central part of Spain, temperatures are very extreme. We have 40 degrees now in summer and 20 degrees below zero in winter. So this sustainable part of the building was also important. We must think of the building, how it could be, how it could function both in this hard weather and also in the summer, and also in the summer times. And also because archaeologists continue excavating now inside this large space. This is the facade with all these perforated curtain steel panels that are, the holes are more, they are smaller on the lower parts, and they open towards the upper parts, just like the leaves of the trees do. Oops. And this is the way the structure and the facade is set up freely, so it looks very light, because it's not stuck to the interior part of the building. And beyond the two layers, we have this technical is a very low technical pasarela, just to clean and to for maintenance and for lighting. Transparency was important in order to blend the building with the sky and with the landscape. No, the whole building is embraced by this green slope that gives us the meter that we need to enter in a very slight way on top of the pedestrian footpath. And this is the building in the landscape. And now to finish, the last building is this library in Ceuta. Now the plan of our Iberian Peninsula is important to explain that Ceuta is really in the northern part of Africa. It is completely surrounded by Morocco, but it is a Spanish city. It's not a colony. It was being Spanish for several centuries, but before it was Portuguese. Centuries ago, Spain and Portugal were the same country, and when Spain and Portugal split, Then Ceuta, that was formerly Portuguese, came to be Spanish, and is with some awkward things, such as that the flag in Ceuta is exactly the same flag as the flag in Lisbon. And well, the site is a beautiful site. This is the Gibraltar Strait. This is the way from the most southern part of Europe. We look up towards Africa and towards Ceuta in this strait that's linked not only Atlantic and Mediterranean, but that also links Europe and our culture to Africa, to a completely different culture in the other part of the strait. There's a funny thing when we cross to go there to the library, that it's like a mirror, because our part, our European part, is exactly the same as the African part, with very steep slopes and very steep topography, but everything is the same. The trees and nature, temperature, it's only different culture, but all the other natural things are exactly the same. It's like a mirror. So Ceuta is a very dense city. As I said, it's completely surrounded by Morocco. And this is another image of Ceuta with this steep topography and this density. And this compact situation of Ceuta also determined the way the library was designed, because we had very little space for building up the library. And also topography. In this ancient image of Ceuta, here you see how steep is the topography with these cliffs that in ancient times all the fortification had to be built in this very difficult situation. Formerly, Ceuta was very small, with small town houses and streets, but now things have completely changed, and we have very little place to build. We have the same slopes. Now, this is the slope of the contemporary city of Ceuta, where the library is being built now, where it is now finished, the contemporary city. But there are other two slopes. This is the Muslim city. That's a very poor part of Ceuta, and all the buildings are one on top of each other. And the dead city, with this beautiful image of the Muslim cemetery in one of the slopes in Ceuta. So here in Ceuta we had too many things, because we had the site and the beautiness of the site, but we also had archaeology, because we had again this old Arab rest of the city from the 14th century that really occupied more than half of the site of the city. We also had this compact situation of Ceuta, with very little place left for building. And what is also most important, we had many different cultures there, because beside the Muslim culture, 70% of the population in Ceuta is Arab. There are many Jewish also in Ceuta, because of this situation of people that came from the Iberian Peninsula when towards Africa. So there is a very large Jewish population also. And we had also, archaeology and this part of the ancient city, Arab city, that is very important for archaeologists because the Arab city is not this disordered city that architects often think, but all the Arab cities are, just like Roman cities, are completely orthogonal with orthogonal access in a completely orderly way. We also had some beautifully paintings and ceramics that had to be kept inside of the library. So everything was quite complex. No? We also had lots of ancient books from the Portuguese era and also from Muslim culture and Jewish culture. So the bibliography and the collection, the book collection of this library is really beautiful collection. And we needed a place for culture. We needed a place for people to come inside the library to understand their past, to understand all these different aspects, but also for reading and for projecting Ceuta towards the future. Everything had to be set up together. So the library is set up in terraces that surround the slope and that surround the archaeological remains. And the challenge of the project was to incorporate the old to the new and not just to leave old finds underneath a library. We wanted to incorporate all these things and to make a sort of unity of such different things that we had to gather up together. Here in this plan you can see this orthogonal direction. I was explaining about the ancient city, Middle-Age city, that is completely turned towards the orthogonal axis of the contemporary Ceuta. So the library grows up in the same way that in the Almeria Museum. The library grows up in height, and all the lecture rooms are placed in several levels that are all overlooking the ancient ruin and articulated with the site, because the site is so steep. We have entrances in different levels towards the library. Here, some funny things that it's inverted in this library is that the book storage, we can't have it underneath the library, and the book storage and all the machinery for installations are on the upper parts of the building. So the program is completely inverted in this library. Here it's easier to see how the library is organized in 7 levels, with the archaeological area in the lower part with natural light. And also, as I said before, there are many things that are interesting for us architects. Not only the site and the materials or the program, but we think that architecture is architecture and it's not just construction or building business, because architecture, as other arts, it establishes relations, transversal relations with other arts and with other things that can make building and construction much better than only building and construction. I think that that's the most beautiful part of architecture, that an architect can give much more than working can give. No, this is a reference and a very beautiful reference of Urs Fischer, where an excavation is set up inside a very light white wall. So this is one of the features of the Ceuta library, is that the old is set up inside the new, and archaeologists are now keep on cleaning the ancient walls. And it's nice when we go there and we see the people that before were working in the building and now are working, taking out and cleaning all the archaeological parts. That when they get into the ancient Arab remains, they said it looks like the house of my grandmother. It looks like ceramics I have at home. It looks like the way we live in the when we go to the country, because we also live with a patio. We also have a well for water or for watering. So there is something always that it is something that it enriches, it gives more rich in architecture, is that when you can understand your own past, when you are in your present, and in this way you can also imagine how can the future can be for this place, for Ceuta, and for the people that are going to use this library. It's something like undo and redo, no, like past and future that that are set up together, no. Now the building is finished, and now it's going to be open to the public in September. Now we are with furnishing and taking inside the books and finishing all the archaeological remains. No, this is the ceiling of the central part of the library, with the two directions, the direction of the contemporary Ceuta and the direction of the ancient Ceuta, with this triangular scheme. And with that triangular pattern also the lights were set up on top of the archaeological remains. And now on top, these empty spaces, completely finished, now are being completed with the books. So in 1 or 2 months' time, the library will be full of people and full of books. That is one of the main things, important things for this library, because as I said before, Ceuta is it's really the frontier, the border between our Europe and Africa. It's very, from the social point of view, it's quite a difficult and hard place, and culture and books and knowledge is very important in this part of the city. Well, these are other aspects of the building, no, from the outside. It is just like a fortress. It's very simple shapes, but it integrates quite well into the skyline of contemporary Ceuta. It's built up only with one material. We have a concrete basement and concrete that was manufactured with pieces of sand that came also from Ceuta, and all the upper part of the building is a very light metal aluminum facade that shades up the interior spaces of the library, because light is very strong and very hard in Ceuta, so we needed a sort of veil to shade the inside of the library and to shade the reading rooms. So the final facade includes different layers. This interior one, that's a glass wall that can be easily cleaned from the outside, because there is again pasarela, technical pasarela to keep the interior part and the outer part. It's sort of very low tech, but that works out quite well for the sun and for the shade, and to keep cool in summer inside of the library. This aluminum facade has different sizes of hollows, so it can shade more the southern part and west part of the library, and in the northern part they are larger. So we have, from the outside, we unify all these different things with a single facade, but it looks like just like a single volume, no? Because this metal facade also folds up towards the roof to cover all the machinery and the installations on top of the library. Here you can see how steep is the topography. It is really the library is completely tied up to the ground in this concrete basement. And well, these are different aspects of the way the library gets up to the ground and links to this small site we had to build up the library. So we think it's going to be a very important educational and cultural event for Ceuta, and also for the city that and for the people that live there. And that's all. So thank you very much. I know if you want to ask anything, or I'll be happy to answer. Maybe there were too many projects, but
I think it was a wonderful lecture and class, a wonderful class, really, on architecture. Any question? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.